The stars above burned red with war. For years, humanity and the Zalari Empire had fought across broken worlds. Every planet they touched turned to ash. Oceans boiled, skies filled with smoke, and both sides lost millions. Commander Elias Riley, a veteran of the Terran Defense Fleet, had seen too many worlds die. He had watched cities vanish under plasma fire, and soldiers fade into silence. Now, as his fleet drifted above the ruined planet of Zalari Prime, the final battle was ending. Humanity had won. But victory didn't feel like triumph. It felt like standing on a grave. The bridge of Riley's flagship, TNS Resolute, was quiet. The only sounds were the soft hum of damaged engines and the occasional spark from a broken console. Through the large viewport, he saw the Zalari homeworld burning below, its once blue atmosphere now glowing orange with flame. "Status report," Riley said quietly. Lieutenant Chen looked up from his screen, voice heavy. "Enemy fleet destroyed, sir. Their command ship broke apart in orbit. Ground forces are gone. Zalari Prime is finished." Finished? The word echoed in Riley's mind like a curse. For decades, the Zalari had been humanity's most dangerous enemy. They were fast, intelligent, ruthless, and proud. They had started the war with a surprise attack on a Terran colony, killing thousands. Humanity had never forgotten. And now, at last, Earth had struck back hard enough to end it. But as Riley looked down at the burning planet, something in his chest felt wrong. Was this truly what peace looked like? A voice from communications broke his thoughts. "Sir, we're still picking up signals from the surface. It could be interference, radiation from the bombardment. Can you isolate any pattern?" Riley asked. The young officer adjusted the frequency, then froze. "Sir, it's a distress signal." Everyone on the bridge turned. "From where?" "Coordinates, southern hemisphere. Underground structures." "It's not military, sir. Civilian channels." Riley walked closer, his boots echoing on the metal floor. "Put it on speaker." Static filled the air, broken by a weak, trembling voice in the alien language. The translator kicked in after a few seconds. "Anyone, please. We are trapped. No food, no air. Children dying. Please, anyone, help us." No one spoke. The voice repeated again, weaker each time, fading between bursts of static. Lieutenant Chen shook his head. "Sir, those are Zalari civilians. Survivors. But, after what they did to us, after what they did to the colonies?" Riley's jaw tightened. He remembered the images from years ago, Terran cities in flames, bodies under alien skies, the cries of families who never got answers. The Zalari had given no mercy then. And now they were asking for it. "Should we silence the channel?" the officer asked quietly. Riley didn't answer. He walked toward the viewport again, staring at the dying planet. Firestorms moved across the continents like living creatures. From this distance, the world looked peaceful, like a glowing ember in the dark. But he knew that down there billions were gone, and the few who survived were trapped in ruins. Admiral Hayes appeared on the holoscreen beside him. "Commander Riley," the older man said firmly, "you've done your part. The fleet is regrouping. We're pulling back to Terran space for recovery. Leave that planet to its fate." Riley hesitated. "Sir, we're detecting civilian distress signals." Hayes frowned. "You can't be serious. They're the enemy, Commander. The same enemy that killed our people. This war took half our fleet. Don't tell me you want to save them now." Riley's voice stayed calm. "War is over, Admiral." Hayes narrowed his eyes. "War is never over, Riley. Not with monsters like them." The transmission cut. For a long time the bridge was silent. Officers waited for Riley's command. Some looked confused. Others looked angry. None of them knew what he was thinking. Then finally he spoke. "Send out a recon drone to confirm signal origin. I want visual." Minutes later the drone's feed appeared on screen, blackened cities, mountains of ash, and deep craters glowing with molten light. Then it moved lower, through clouds of dust, and found a damaged underground structure. Inside were hundreds of Zalari, weak, starving, and terrified. Children huddled around flickering lamps. Adults tried to filter air through scraps of metal. They weren't soldiers. They weren't fighters. They were just alive. The bridge crew stared at the image in silence. Lieutenant Chen's voice broke the quiet. "Sir, if we go down there, the council will call it treason." Riley's eyes stayed on the screen. He remembered something his father once said: "The strength of humanity isn't in how we fight, it's in who we choose to save." Riley straightened his posture. "Get me a channel to the fleet," he ordered. The officers exchanged nervous glances. "Sir?" He looked at them, calm but certain. We're going back. No one believed what they just heard. Outside, the war-torn stars flickered in silence, watching as one human commander prepared to do the unthinkable. To save the very enemy humanity had spent decades trying to destroy. The skies over Zalari Prime burned like molten metal. The distant stars were swallowed by streaks of fire and smoke, and the ruins of once great cities glowed with a deadly orange light. Humanity and the Zalari now stood side by side, preparing for a battle that would decide not only their survival but the future of the planet. Commander Elias Riley stood on the bridge of the TNS Resolute, eyes fixed on the horizon. Above, the Vornak Syndicate, the mysterious raiders who had attacked the planet, were regrouping. They were more numerous than the humans had anticipated, and they moved with cold precision, seeking to finish what they had started. Riley's voice rang out across the bridge. All ships, defensive formation. Protect the civilians at all costs. No Zalari or human is left behind. The fleet responded immediately. Energy shields flared, plasma cannons charged, and fighter drones zipped into the stormy skies like swarms of lightning. On the ground, Riley led a squad of human soldiers through the ruins, flanked by Zalari engineers and medics. The streets were a maze of collapsed buildings and rubble, each corner hiding danger. "Commander incoming," shouted Lieutenant Chin. A squad of Vornak raiders burst from the shadows, weapons glowing as they fired. Human soldiers returned fire, plasma beams cutting through the smoky air, while Zalari engineers triggered defensive turrets that unleashed waves of energy. Riley moved with calm efficiency, guiding his team through the chaos. Every shot, every command was measured. He had faced death countless times, but this battle was different. They weren't just fighting for victory, they were fighting for life. A sudden explosion rocked the street, sending debris flying. A building collapsed, trapping a group of Zalari civilians inside. Riley didn't hesitate. "Chin, Karis, help them." The team rushed forward, pulling the civilians from the rubble while under heavy fire. Riley shielded a child with his body, ignoring sparks of plasma that scorched the walls nearby. The child clutched his hand tightly, eyes wide with fear. "You're safe now," Riley whispered. "You're safe." Above the planet, the fleet engaged in a furious battle. Zalari engineers had modified Terran weapons to work with their own systems, creating hybrid cannons that fired with deadly accuracy. Human pilots coordinated with Zalari ships, striking the Vornak fleet from multiple directions. Despite being outnumbered, the human-Zalari alliance was winning. Every raider ship destroyed was another life saved below. And with each passing moment, trust grew between the former enemies. Riley's eyes scanned the battlefield from orbit. He noticed a Zalari captain maneuvering a damaged vessel to block enemy fire aimed at a human cruiser. The captain's ship erupted in a brilliant explosion, sacrificing itself to protect allies. Riley's jaw tightened as he saluted. "We won't forget this," he said softly. Not a single act of courage goes unnoticed. The battle raged for hours. Civilians were evacuated to temporary shelters, ground teams cleared explosives, and fighter drones intercepted every Vornak advance. Through all the chaos, Riley moved with purpose, never losing sight of the mission: save lives. At one point, an injured Vornak soldier was captured. Instead of executing him, Riley ordered the medics to treat the alien. Lieutenant Chen looked shocked. "Commander, we could finish him. We could make sure he never fights again." Riley shook his head. "No. Today isn't about revenge. Today is about mercy. That's what makes us human." The soldier, barely conscious, looked up at Riley with confusion, then fear, and finally, something like understanding. As night fell over the war-torn planet, the Vornak retreated, leaving behind wreckage, fire, and silence. Humans and Zalari tended to their wounded, rebuilt damaged shelters and counted the lives saved. The Alliance had survived. Riley walked through the camp, observing the aftermath. He saw Zalari and human children playing side by side, laughter cutting through the tension of the past days. Adults exchanged stories, slowly lowering walls built by decades of hatred. Vailrin, the Zalari commander, approached Riley. His face was tired but calm. "You could have destroyed us. You could have left us to die. Instead, you fought for us and even spared your enemies." Riley looked out at the smoldering horizon. "We fight when we must," he said. "But we save when we can. Mercy isn't weakness, it's strength. Today we proved that." Vailrin's eyes softened. "Then perhaps, humanity is more than the galaxy ever imagined." The night was quiet now, save for the distant crackle of fires in the ruins. The stars peeked through the smoke, observing the fragile alliance below. Riley stood on a hill overlooking the shelters, watching Zalari and humans share the same sky. He knew the galaxy was watching too. Some would see the mercy as a weakness. Others would fear it. But Riley also knew this. Humans had shown that strength was not just in war, but in choosing to protect even those who had been their enemies. And as the first light of dawn touched the burned cities, Riley whispered to himself, "The galaxy will never forget today. Fire and mercy, both can change the course of history." End of part. Hook. High above the planet, distant fleets watched silently. Some were curious. Some were plotting revenge. But all would soon realize that humanity had done something no one expected. They had fought with fire, and saved their enemies. Months had passed since the battle over Zalari Prime. The planet's skies were no longer red with fire, but still heavy with ash and smoke. Cities once shattered by war now bore the first signs of rebuilding. Humans and Zalari worked together, side by side, in a fragile but growing alliance. Commander Elias Riley walked through a new settlement near the ruins of the capital. Children ran past him, laughing and playing, some human, some Zalari. Their innocent joy was a stark contrast to the battles that had once filled the planet with screams. Medical tents had been replaced by permanent clinics. Engineers had rebuilt shelters into proper homes. Food and clean water were available again for the first time in years. Riley allowed himself a rare smile. Progress was slow, but it was real. He stopped beside the monument rising in the center of the settlement. A tall structure of white metal and black stone, it bore the names of the fallen from both sides, humans and Zalari, soldiers and civilians alike. Each name was a reminder that life mattered more than hatred. Vaelrin, the Zalari commander, approached quietly. His once cautious posture was now relaxed. "It's remarkable," he said, "to see humans and Zalari working together. I never imagined this." Riley nodded. "Neither did I. But war teaches lessons, and sometimes the hardest lesson is mercy." The two men stood in silence for a moment, looking at the monument. The names of the fallen glowed faintly in the evening light, a silent testament to the cost of conflict, and the price of compassion. Inside the newly built council hall, representatives from both species gathered. They debated resources, safety, and rebuilding strategies. It was slow, tense work, but Riley saw something new emerging: trust. Lieutenant Chen leaned over to Riley. "Commander, do you think it will last? The peace, I mean?" Riley watched the Zalari delegates and humans talking, gesturing, laughing cautiously even. "It has to," he said. "Peace doesn't come from fear or force. It comes from choice. And today, everyone here has chosen it." Even in orbit, the Terran fleet watched over the planet. Their mission was complete, yet they remained vigilant. Riley understood the lesson clearly. The galaxy was full of threats, and mercy alone would not be enough. But when combined with courage, strategy, and resolve, it became a weapon unlike any other. At night, Riley walked to a small hill overlooking the settlement. The wind carried the faint smell of smoke, earth, and rebuilding wood. Children's laughter echoed faintly from the streets below. Vaelrin joined him, staring at the stars above. "Your people, they are different from any I have met," the Zalari commander said. "They fight, yes, but they also save. That combination is terrifying." Riley smiled slightly. "Terrifying maybe, but also necessary. The galaxy needs to see that strength doesn't just lie in destruction. It lies in choosing what's right, even when it's hard." Vaelrin's gaze softened. "Then perhaps, this is just the beginning. A new chapter for both our peoples." Riley looked at the stars, thinking of the countless worlds still in shadow, still watching, still waiting. "Yes," he said, "and we will be ready for them. But today, we celebrate life, not war." The following morning, a joint human-Zalari ceremony took place at the monument. Children laid flowers, soldiers bowed, and survivors whispered names of loved ones lost. Riley stood at the center, hands clasped behind his back, watching quietly. A young Zalari girl, no older than 7, approached him and handed him a small, carved wooden figure. "Thank you," she said softly, her eyes shining, "for saving us." Riley knelt and accepted it. "You're welcome. And remember, you can do the same for others when it's your turn." The small gesture carried weight. Every act of mercy, every decision to protect rather than destroy, was a seed for a better future. In the weeks that followed, trade routes opened, joint patrols maintained safety, and children of both species began attending the same schools. Slowly but surely, the scars of war began to fade, replaced with hope, cooperation, and understanding. Riley watched from his command post one evening as the sun set behind the mountains. The city below glowed with lanterns and the soft light of fires for cooking and warmth. Somewhere in the distance, laughter and music rose, a melody of life continuing. He whispered to himself almost as a prayer, "We saved them, and in saving them we saved ourselves." Valerin stood beside him. "The galaxy will hear of this, won't it?" Riley smiled. "Yes. And they will know that humans fight with fire, but also with mercy. And one day that might change everything." End of story. Closing line. The stars once feared humanity for their rage. Now they would learn to fear something even greater. The strength of a species that chooses to save, even when saving their enemy seems impossible. Zalari Prime was no longer just a planet of ashes. It was a monument to hope, courage, and the unexpected power of mercy. And humanity had kept its promise. The silence of space stretched endlessly as the Terran fleet turned back toward Zalari Prime. Inside the bridge of the TNS Resolute, Commander Elias Riley paced slowly, his boots echoing against the metal floor. Every officer aboard watched him in nervous anticipation. No one had ever seen Riley hesitate, but now uncertainty lingered like a shadow over the ship. "Sir, are we really going to do this?" Lieutenant Chin finally asked, voice trembling. Riley stopped and looked out the viewport at the distant planet below. "We have a choice, Lieutenant. We can leave them to die, or we can do what's right." Some officers whispered among themselves, disbelief written on their faces. Humanity had fought the Zalari for decades. The Empire had burned Terran colonies, slaughtered civilians, and refused every peace offer. Why save them now? Lieutenant Karras, the fleet strategist, shook her head. "Commander, with all due respect, the Council will call this madness. They'll accuse you of treason." Riley didn't answer. His mind replayed the images from the drone. Starving children huddled in ruined tunnels, terrified adults clutching one another, their eyes pleading for help. For the first time, Riley saw something he hadn't noticed during the war. Fear, desperation, humanity. He turned to his crew, voice firm. "This isn't about politics. It's not about revenge. These are lives, innocent lives. If we don't act now, they'll die. And that will be on us." The crew remained silent, tension heavy in the air. Some nodded slowly, realizing the truth of his words. Others clenched their fists, anger and disbelief warring within them. A sudden alert from communications broke the quiet. The distress signal from the underground shelters was repeating again, weak, barely audible but persistent. Riley stepped forward. "Patch it through the speaker." Static crackled before the voice came through, trembling. "Please, anyone, help us, the children." The crew fell silent again. Even hardened soldiers couldn't ignore the sound. Lieutenant Chin swallowed hard. "Sir, it's real. They're begging for help." Riley's hand hovered over the command console. He took a deep breath and pressed the transmission button. "Humanity will respond," he said softly, almost to himself. The fleet moved closer to the planet's orbit. Sensors scanned the surface, mapping rubble, radiation, and unstable terrain. Every step of the way, Riley weighed the danger. The Zalari might be weak now, but remnants of their army could still strike. And then there were the unknowns. Orbital debris, collapsing structures, and the possibility of ambush. "Sir," Lieutenant Karras said cautiously, "the structures we're detecting are unstable. Any landing attempt could trigger a collapse. It's a trap waiting to happen." Riley didn't flinch. "I've landed my fleet in worse conditions. We adapt. We survive. That's what humans do." As the fleet prepared for descent, a transmission came through from the Galactic Council. "Commander Riley, this is an official order. Do not engage Zalari Prime. Repeat, do not engage. You are hereby instructed to return to Terran space immediately." The voice was calm, mechanical, but cold. Riley clenched his fists. "Copy that, Council. We'll take your order under advisement." He turned to the officers. "Set course for the distress signal. Full support. No exceptions." Murmurs of shock filled the room. Lieutenant Chin leaned over the console. "Sir, the Council just gave us a direct order. If we continue, it's defiance." Riley's eyes were steady. "Then we'll be heroes in a way they never taught us." The first human shuttle descended through the fiery clouds of Zalari Prime. Lightning crackled across the sky, a storm whipped ash and dust into the air, and buildings, shattered from decades of war, groaned under the weight of destruction. Riley stood in the command shuttle, looking at the trembling planet below. "Prepare for landing," he said. "Every crew member, stay alert. We don't know what we'll face, but we'll do it together." As the shuttle touched down near a ruined city, the ground shook with aftershocks. Human engineers rushed to stabilize the area while medical teams prepared emergency triage stations. Above all, Riley watched, eyes scanning for threats, but his heart focused on the faces they had come to save. They found the first survivors huddled in a half-collapsed tunnel. Riley stepped forward, hands raised to show he meant no harm. The Zalari, gaunt and weak, eyed him with suspicion. One of them, a young female soldier, gripped a broken rifle. Riley knelt to meet her gaze. "We're not here to fight," he said slowly. "We're here to save lives." The soldier hesitated. The tension was unbearable. Finally, she lowered the rifle. The first act of trust had begun. Hours later, the Resolute's bridge received confirmation. Dozens of Zalari civilians had been rescued. Families were evacuated from the tunnels, children carried to safety, and medical teams worked tirelessly to stabilize the wounded. Riley allowed himself a brief moment of relief. He knew the council would never understand this decision and some of his own crew might question it, but in that moment he saw the truth. Humanity's strength wasn't just in war, it was in mercy. As night fell over the charred planet, Riley stared out at the stars. Somewhere, in the vast darkness, someone would hear about what humans had done. The galaxy would be surprised, perhaps even shaken. And humanity had just made its first choice, to save the very enemy that had once tried to destroy them. End of part hook. Above the planet, unknown eyes watched the human fleet. Not all were friendly. Some wondered why humans would risk everything for those they had fought for decades. And somewhere, a new story was beginning, one that would change the fate of Zalari Prime forever. The galaxy was no longer calm. For centuries it had followed order. The council ruled, the empires obeyed, and humans were ignored. But now everything had changed. When humans activated Project Impossible, the galaxy went dark. 460 long seconds, every ship, every colony, every planet, lost power. No one could move. No one could speak. And when the light returned, nothing was the same. Inside the Grand Council Hall, alarms still flashed. Thousands of alien delegates shouted over one another. The holographic display showed only one thing, the solar system glowing like a heart of fire. High Speaker Arlen slammed his clawed hand on the desk. "Silence. Order," he roared. But his voice was drowned by panic. "They've disabled our defense grids. They shut down the entire galaxy. What if they do it again?" Arlen's voice thundered again. "Enough." Slowly the noise faded. He looked across the sea of frightened faces, leaders from 1,000 worlds. "They've done something we cannot explain," he said. "But we will find out how. Send every science vessel, every probe. I want answers." An old alien scholar spoke softly from the side. "High Speaker, what if we can't understand it?" Arlen's eyes darkened. "Then we prepare for war." On the far side of the galaxy, Commander Reltor watched the sun from his small ship, the Vrain's Claw. He had witnessed everything, the light, the shutdown, the rebirth. He had seen humans command the power of a star. Now he couldn't stop thinking about what came next. His first officer approached carefully. "Commander, new readings are coming in. The energy ring is stabilizing." Reltor turned slowly. "Stabilizing? After that blast?" "Yes, sir. The radiation levels are dropping. It's as if the humans are controlling every atom." Reltor stared at the screen. No weapons. No chaos. Just precision. It wasn't destruction, it was control. He whispered to himself, "They didn't unleash chaos, they planned it." On Earth, Dr. Mira Solon stood in the central control room of Project Impossible. The walls trembled with power. Screens glowed with endless data streams. Around her, tired scientists worked silently. Some were crying. Some were praying. "Report," Mira said calmly. A young technician replied, "Phase 2 successful. The fusion core is stable. No system failures detected." "Any external interference?" "None." "But doctor," the technician hesitated. "We're receiving a signal. It's coming from outside the galaxy." Myra's head snapped up. "Outside?" "Yes." Weak but repeating. "It's responding to our earlier broadcast." The room went quiet. Every scientist turned toward her. Mira took a slow breath. "Play it." A strange hum filled the speakers, low, deep, like the voice of a distant storm. It wasn't words. It wasn't sound. It was a vibration that seemed to reach into their bones. Some scientists clutched their heads. Others fell to their knees. "It's not just sound," Mira whispered. "It's communication." The realization hit her like a blade of ice. They hadn't just built a machine. They had sent a message, And something had answered. Back in the council hall, the fear spread like fire. Reports flooded in from every corner of the galaxy. Communication blackouts near human space. Ships refusing to approach Sol system. Energy storms affecting navigation routes. The council demanded immediate action. Fleet Commander Vecran slammed his fist on the table. I warned you. Humanity was a threat waiting to happen. We must strike now, before they unleash something worse. But the Varn ambassador shook his head. Strike? Against what? Their technology shuts down entire systems. You'll send ships to die. Vecran snarled, then we die trying. I will not let apes control the stars. Erlen raised a hand. Enough. There will be no war, not yet. We need to understand their purpose. He turned to his aides. Send envoys to Earth. If they refuse to meet, we act. The council agreed, but in their hearts, none believed diplomacy would work. Meanwhile, in the shadows of space, something massive moved. From the edge of the solar system, human vessels, thousands of them, began leaving their orbits. They moved silently, their engines glowing white with impossible energy. Each ship carried a faint pulse, the same rhythm as the sun. The same heartbeat. Reltor watched in awe. They're spreading the energy field, he muttered. His first officer turned to him. Commander, should we retreat? He shook his head. No. If the galaxy fears them, someone must understand them. Someone must witness the truth. He turned to the stars. Send a message to the council. Tell them I'm staying. Inside Project Impossible's command center, Dr. Mira stared at the data from the deep space signal. The readings were changing. It wasn't random. It was growing clearer. Mira, said one of the scientists nervously, this isn't natural. It's organized. It's like someone is answering our math with their own. Mira didn't look away from the screen. Then we're not alone anymore. A silence fell over the room. Every scientist felt the same thought, cold and unspoken. What if humanity had just contacted something older than the galaxy itself? The technician looked up. Doctor, what do we do? Mira took a deep breath. We listen. And we learn. Hours later, the galaxy's military fleets gathered near the borders of human space. Hundreds of alien ships waited in formation, engines burning blue in the void. The commanders' voices trembled over the comms. This is madness. They've done nothing yet. What if they see this as war? But fear was stronger than reason. High Speaker Arlen's voice echoed across every fleet. Hold your positions. Do not engage unless provoked. Humanity has crossed a line, but we will not strike first. Then came the whisper from one of the distant ships, a lone scout's final message before its signal vanished. Something's happening near the sun. The ring is opening. Reltor saw it too. Through his viewport, the energy ring around Earth's sun began spinning faster. Then it split open like a giant eye. A brilliant beam of light shot outward, not a weapon but a tunnel. A hole in space itself. The light stretched far, far into the void beyond the galaxy's edge. And from that endless blackness, something shimmered in return. Commander, his officer whispered. What is that? Reltor stared at the expanding gateway and felt a chill crawl down his spine. He had fought wars. He had seen planets burn. But this was different. That, he said slowly, is why the galaxy should panic. Back on Earth, Myra's team confirmed it. Project Impossible had done more than control a star. It had opened space. The human experiment had created a door, a bridge between galaxies. And something had stepped through. A faint shadow appeared inside the glowing ring. It was enormous, too large to be a ship, too strange to be a planet. The sensors failed to describe it. Even computers crashed trying to record its shape. But for one brief second before the signal cut, the entire galaxy heard a sound echo across space. Not human, not alien, but ancient. A voice. It whispered one word. Finally. The council fell silent. The fleets froze. Even the humans stopped their celebration. Because whatever had answered was now here. And the galaxy finally understood the true meaning of Project Impossible. It wasn't just a test of power. It was an invitation. And someone, or something, had accepted it. The night sky over Zalari Prime was quiet, almost peaceful, yet tension hung heavy in the air. Human and Zalari survivors shared fragile shelters, their uneasy alliance beginning to form. But Commander Elias Riley knew that peace on a war-torn planet was always temporary. From orbit, the Terran fleet scanned for threats. 4 hours, nothing unusual appeared, until a sudden blip showed up on the sensors. Lieutenant Chen's voice broke the quiet. "Commander, we've got unidentified ships entering orbit. They're fast, small and heavily armed. They're not Zalari." Riley frowned, studying the feed. The ships moved with precision, avoiding detection until now. "Not Zalari, not human," he muttered. "Who are they?" The fleet scanners gave no answer. Riley's jaw tightened. He had faced the Zalari in countless battles. He had seen alien mercenaries and warlords. But these ships, they carried the silent efficiency of predators. Lieutenant Karras leaned over the console. "Sir, they're closing in on the planet. If they attack, civilians and our crews will be in immediate danger." Riley's eyes hardened. "Then we don't wait. Prepare defensive formations. Alert every shuttle, every ground team. Everyone gets ready." Below, the temporary shelters were buzzing with activity. Engineers reinforced weak structures. Medics tended to the sick and wounded. Children clung to their parents, unaware of the danger lurking above. Riley's shuttle descended to meet ground teams, moving quickly through the city ruins. As he landed, he saw the Zalari commander, Vaelrin, standing tensely among his people. "Commander Riley," Vaelrin said quietly, his alien features tense. "We see them. The ships. Who are they?" Riley shook his head. "Unknown. But they mean harm. We'll defend you." Vaelrin's eyes narrowed. "Why? You saved us, and now you risk more?" Riley's gaze met his. "Because humanity does what's right, even when it's dangerous." The Zalari commander's expression softened slightly, but the tension in the air remained thick. The first signs of attack came silently. A pulse of energy hit the outskirts of the ruined city, causing a section of a crumbling building to collapse. Dust and smoke filled the air. "Impact. Brace for more," Riley shouted, grabbing the communication console. Shuttle teams engaged defensive maneuvers. Civilians to shelters now. Human pilots and Zalari engineers worked together for the first time in decades. Energy shields flared, drones deployed, and laser cannons lit the sky in streaks of blue and orange. Riley watched from the ground as a small group of the unknown ships tried to penetrate the human defenses. They moved with ruthless precision, targeting weak points and avoiding human fire. Lieutenant Chen's voice was tense. "Sir, they know our tactics, they've studied us. This isn't a simple raid." Riley nodded grimly. "Then we adapt. That's what we do best." The battle above was brutal but precise. Civilians huddled in reinforced shelters, while Riley led squads through the streets, neutralizing threats on the ground. In one tense moment, a Vornak raider, one of the mysterious attackers, tried to detonate explosives near the human medical tents. Riley sprinted forward, dodging debris and fire, and tackled the alien just as it triggered the device. Sparks flew, but the explosives didn't detonate. The young Zalari boy Riley had saved earlier ran up behind him, eyes wide. Riley handed him to a medic. "Go. Stay safe." The alien raiders were relentless. But humans and Zalari, side by side, began to coordinate. Zalari engineers modified captured alien weapons, creating traps and shields. Human pilots covered airspace with precision strikes. It was the first time in history that former enemies fought together, united not by war but by survival. Hours passed. Slowly the tide turned. The unknown fleet began to falter against the unexpected human-Zalari alliance. One by one the raiders retreated, leaving wreckage in their wake. Riley allowed himself a brief moment to breathe. Around him, Zalari survivors stared in disbelief. Their fiercest enemy had fought not to kill them but to protect them. Vaelrin approached Riley, his voice low. I never thought humans would do this. Even after all we've done, you saved us." Riley shook his head. "We don't fight for revenge. We fight for what's right. Today that means saving lives, even yours." The Zalari commander bowed his head slightly. "Then perhaps, this war doesn't define us anymore." Riley looked up at the stars. Unknown eyes would remember today. They had witnessed humans choosing mercy over hatred. And in that mercy they had found a strength no weapon could match. End of part hook. Above the planet, more ships moved silently through the void. Some were watching, some were plotting. The galaxy was full of predators, and word of humanity's choices would spread. Some would see mercy as weakness. Others would fear it as power. But Riley knew one thing: humans were no longer just fighters, they were saviors. And whoever came next would learn the hard way that saving your enemies could be the most dangerous act of all.